In 2014, we moved from the big city of Edmonton, Alberta to the small town of Gibsons, BC. We feel a little bit like trailblazers because in the last 2 or 3 years, that seems to be a trend nationally to leave the big city and go to a small town. There are lots of things we like about living in a small town, and there is lots in general to like about living in a small town, but there are some things you need to be aware of. So here are 5 things that you might hate about living in a small community.
Number 1 is limited choices. And so then that can include restaurants, shopping, car dealerships.
We never feel like we have no choice when we go out to eat or to go shopping. But if you're living in a big city, you might literally be used to having the choice of 100 different places to go eat. And here on the Sunshine Coast, we would have tens of places, dozens of places to go and eat. It's not that means that we can't ever go out for dinner. It doesn't mean that we go hungry. It doesn't mean that we don't have fabulous restaurants. It just means we don't have hundreds of restaurants to pick from on the Sunshine Coast. And if you're moving to a small town, that might be your experience as well.
Specifically, I really didn't think about it right off the top until a friend had said that was the one thing they couldn't stand. They moved from Vancouver to here, and it was restaurant choices that they were really missing certain restaurants in Vancouver.
And it goes down the whole list. It's not just restaurants, but like car dealerships. We've got 3 car dealerships on the coast. They're all American. So if you want to drive a Honda or Toyota or something like that, then you're going to the city. So you can definitely buy a new car here. The dealerships we have will take very good care of you and they will sell you a very nice car, but you don't get to pick from every type of car that exists if you're going to buy a new car. Same with hardware stores or any really retail type of environment. You just don't have the entire catalog of possible business to choose from.
Number 2 is the lack of theater, concerts, big events. You could even throw in there movies, because right now there's like one movie that plays for a week and you either go see that movie or no movie.
That's right. Again, yeah, like you've got in a bigger center, you've got lots of choice. Here, we don't, like Val said, there's your choice with the movie theaters, take it or leave it that week.
With big events, you could be missing big concerts. Well, you'd have to go into the city for the big concert, big sporting events, games, and you just don't have it right here. It
could be different, I think, for other smaller communities as well. We're kind of fortunate that we're so close to Vancouver. So for us to say, we're going to go to a concert or we're going to go to a hockey game or something like that, it's not really a massive undertaking. If you're living in a more remote area where your next nearest big center is, a day or so away by car, then yeah, saying, I'm going to run in to see a hockey game or go to see a concert, it kind of turns into an all weekend kind of thing. We're fortunate that we can probably, maybe get away with it in a day, or for sure not more than an overnight. Definitely something to be aware of. With that said, we here in town, and I'm sure in a lot of other small towns, you have lots of events. There's local bands and there's, local plays and all those types of things, local art galleries. We're never going to see, Lady Gaga come to the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah.
So if that's something that's important to you, is seeing, big shows and top tier professional sports and that kind of thing, you're going to miss it living in a small town.
All right. So number 3, it's transit. There's a little bit less frequency of transit and the outlying areas where it can reach. It can only go so far and run so often. So a little bit lack in the transit department.
We're really fortunate here on the coast that we do have any type of transit at all, but I think the bus only runs every hour and a half or 2 hours. If you miss a bus, you don't just wait 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a pretty long wait for the next one, but I think that's a pretty big step up over a lot of smaller communities that don't even have that. And we've talked about it before and I can never remember the name of it, but we do have a version of Uber here, even that ride sharing, we even have that here. But yeah, Val's from a small town there in northern Alberta. And I don't think there was a bus to catch, was there?
No, just a school bus.
Just a school bus. So yeah, me too. I grew up just south of Edmonton in a small town, and yeah, there was no bus.
There was no transit then when you grew up?
Nope, there was nope. For a little while, I think there was a bus to take you into the city.
Okay.
But that was it. But there was no transit in town. You walked or you got mom and dad to drive you. Those were your choices.
Oh boy, good old days.
If you rely a lot on transit, then you might be missing out when you move to a small community.
The other thing you might be missing out on is if you're in the dating pool. Well, in smaller towns, it might be a smaller dating pool.
Yeah, the pool is a little shallower in some small towns. Yeah. Thankfully, that's not really anything I worry about anymore. That's behind me, luckily. But yeah, that's something you do hear complaints about in a small community, is that pickings can be a little bit slim, and that a lot of relationships are intertwined. that you date one person and doesn't work out. So then you date the friend and that doesn't work out. You date the friend. And that's maybe fine. That's maybe awkward, whatever. But in a small town, that's just, it is what it is.
I think that's part of the reason when you finish high school in a small town, you're like, I am out of here.
Find new people to get your claws into. Yeah. And the flip side of the dating then too, I would assume, is that it would maybe be a little bit awkward if there's like a breakup. You know, if you're in a big city and there's a breakup, you can just say, oh, I'm not going to where that person works, or I'm not going to drive past their house anymore, or I'll find another route. But in a small town, depending what the ex does, you might not have any choice but to see them when you go to the store, or, you know, that kind of thing. So yeah, the dating pool is a little bit skinnier in a small town.
And number 5 is shorter hours for businesses.
The theme in all 5 of these things is that in a small community, your choice is a little bit limited. And it's the same with business hours. You just are restricted to when you can shop. I know living in Edmonton, we kind of were spoiled that we could go shopping, like grocery shopping, until midnight. That was not a big deal. There were lots of stores, whether they were convenience stores or drug stores, that kind of thing, that were open around the clock, that if you needed something, you could go do it. And even in, I don't know if it still is in Calgary, but in Calgary, there were hardware stores that were open 24 hours. You didn't really want for much in a bigger city. But here, that's not really the case. The grocery stores, you know, close at 9 o'clock. The London Drugs closes at 9 o'clock. There's not really anything open too late in the evening, and closed on holidays, those types of things. So it's just a little bit of a slower pace of life than it would be in the big city where everything is open all the time.
There you go. The 5 things you might not like about living in a small town. Are there ones that we missed? Have you moved to a small town, or do you live in a small town and you have things that you can add to the list? Then please add it in the comments, and that'll be great. And while you're at it, subscribe to our channel and you can get more of these types of videos. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.